You tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real Estate Realities with the Rebel Broker. My name's Robert Whitelaw, and I am the Rebel Broker. Licensed real estate broker in the state of California. Member of the National Association of Realtors. But please, don't hold that against me. Apologies for being a couple of days late with today's show. I was not feeling too hot the last couple of days, and it was actually affecting my voice, so I wanted to wait till I could give you the dulcet tones that you've come to expect from the Rebel Broker. So here we are once again trying to navigate our way through the crazy world of real estate and all things that poke at it. So many different things in the wind. Now, if you missed it, we did do Coffee and Real Estate just this last weekend. So you can head on over to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. I stream it to a lot of different places now simultaneously as the show is happening. And you can check that out. Where in that show, we covered really the big numbers for July, for Santa Clara County, overall, the county in general. We also covered the local markets for Morgan Hill and Gilroy. And then sort of weaved into that the latest news and information that's come along. So it's a good opportunity not only to get that information, but if you decide you want to tag along, to ask your questions as we go through it. So feel free to join me next month. On the third Saturday of every month, we do one of these bad boys where we get together, we enjoy some coffee, and we chat about real estate. So feel free to join me. If you'd like to get more information on the next date, you can go to soldbyrobert.com. Just scroll down a little bit, and right there in the middle will be a countdown to the next Coffee and Real Estate. From there, you can also check out my latest podcasts. You can also look at the latest 7-day snapshot from Morgan Hill, which just covers a very thin slice of 1 week of data for Morgan Hill. For those of you who really want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in Morgan Hill on a regular basis. As you can see, now that we're doing the podcast with a video element, for those of you on YouTube, you can see I am now going into the awkward phase of facial hair, where you look kind of grubby and it starts to get itchy. So we'll see if I can stand it. Once I get past that, I'm good. And we'll see how much beard I end up with over the next couple of weeks. Today's show, obviously you know what today's show's topic is because you've seen the thumbnail. We have a very interesting scenario happening right now where affordability has now hit a 33-year low. And this is an article from Realtor Magazine. Now, for those of you who are joining me on YouTube, you can actually watch me scroll through this article in case it's something you'd like to check out yourself. But we'll be covering all the main data here. We're still doing this as a podcast, so you don't need to panic. But they harken back to 1989, and that's just 1 year after I first came into the business. I got licensed, and I got my real estate license in 1988. And right around 1989, many of the stories that I've shared with folks on podcasts or in person talk about what was going on with real estate during that time. And remember, interest rates were way up there in 1989, 1990. I mean, we're talking over 10%. I remember when things went from 10% to 9%, everything just went completely nuts with people buying. So it was very different in terms of interest rates. And I think that's worth noting. We're still far below what interest rates were in 1989. Housing affordability hit a 33-year low in June. It'll probably only get worse in July. But I would imagine once we get, actually when we talk about July, and we as I mentioned before, we talked about it over the weekend, the rate at which properties have been increasing has definitely gone down. We definitely still saw an increase in average sales price of homes, et cetera. but the amount of increase has slowed down. So July may be on par with in terms of lack of affordability, but it may actually have slowed a bit. So we'll see if we end up setting a new record in July versus June, according to this. The average monthly mortgage payment jumped 54% year over year in June. That is a gigantic increase. And when people talk about sustainability, what can you do with that if you are someone who's buying a home? Now, granted, for the folks who've bought and they've got that fixed rate loan, and I sure hope you got a fixed rate loan when you did buy your home, this kind of stuff is insane, where the average monthly mortgage payment jumped 54% year over year in June, while the median household income only rose 5.8%. And I'm actually stunned that that number is as high as it is. Because remember, we also have to take into account inflation. And with inflation as high as it is, that 5.8% increase in your income is not an income increase, right? You've lost 4%. You didn't, your pay raise, your income did not keep pace with the increased cost of other things, not just your mortgage, right? As home affordability weakened and the median home price shot to a record $413,800 in June, National Association of Realtors Index fell to its lowest reading in 33 years. Quote, home prices have increased at a pace that far exceeds wage gains, especially for low and middle income workers, according to the National Association of Realtors chief economist, Lawrence Yun, someone who I've disagreed with pretty frequently in terms of some of their predictions. Now, what's funny is how soft Mr. Yun was on expectations of there being a housing recession or a recession. We actually discussed some things he had to say a few podcasts ago, probably a month ago now. But in other news related to this, we are in a housing recession, experts say. Here's what that means for homeowners, sellers, and buyers. Now, this is always the kind of data we want to share here, right? We want to leave you with what action should you take. So let's see what these folks say we should do. Some of their bullet points: sale of existing homes were down last month by 20.2%. And in our area, these numbers tend to be higher, right? So these are national averages, and we are seeing worse numbers in our local market here in Silicon Valley. By 20.2 to 4.8 million properties from 6 million a year earlier. Median price last month was $403,800, up 10.8% from July of 2021, and homes are still selling quickly. Although the quickly is a relative term, right? So as we've seen from the data I shared over the weekend during the coffee and real estate session, the days on market number is now a real number. We are now seeing homes tending to sell organically rather than at a defined time that the real estate agent told people to submit their offers. So just to sort of calibrate you to what that is, for those of you who are new, when the market was super hot, agents were simply saying in the listing, we are not going to accept offers until such and such a date. And that was usually 10 days, 14 days, 16 days after the listing date, so that buyers would have plenty of time to tour the property. And it was a way to control the way the process would move. And then they would get 5, 10, 15. I mean, I was involved in transactions at the peak where we had as many as 25 offers at one time. So then they would pick from those and move on, right? So when you are seeing days on market numbers in our local marketplace in Morgan Hill, Gilroy, San Jose, of 15 days, 14 days, the only reason we had that was because agents were making people wait those 14 days. Now we're seeing days on market went up. I believe it was at 19 days for Morgan Hill. I think it was 19 days for Morgan Hill and 19 days for the county, if I'm not mistaken. So it was sort of, or maybe it was for San Jose. Either way, those numbers are real numbers. We are not seeing dramatic surges of multiple offer scenarios where agents have the luxury of telling everyone to hold off on presenting offers. They are I'm seeing many more listings coming on the market that simply say we will entertain offers as they are submitted. But at some price points, the competition is very fierce. At the lower price points, we're still seeing a lot of competition there, which I can see how that would make sense, right? There are implications for buyers and sellers who may already be seeing shifts in their local market. Let's see here. For example, sales of existing homes in July fell by 5.9% from June, marking the sixth straight month of decline and a drop of more than 20% from a year earlier. There have been layoffs and slower job growth in the industry, and we've talked about that, right? In order to really to have a healthy real estate market, you need a healthy employment market, and not just part-time jobs. People aren't typically buying a house based off of a part-time job, particularly here in Silicon Valley, but a full-time, career-focused style job, and we lost those. If you watched my last podcast or listened to my last podcast, you know we talked about the reality behind those numbers and how the headlines really weren't telling the whole story, where we lost full-time jobs and gained a bunch of people working multiple part-time jobs, which is not great, right? So that's not the way to build a recovery. Home builder sentiment has turned negative. It was down 10 points the last time we talked about it, which was just within the last few weeks. I believe maybe even over this weekend. And they are even stopping some in-progress developments in terms of new home development. Buyers are canceling contracts. Something else we talked about. Jumped to 5.72% from below 3.3% heading into 2022. Quote, we are witnessing a housing recession in terms of declining home sales and home building, according to Lawrence Yun. At this point, however, it's a different story for homeowners, buyers, and sellers. It's not a recession in home prices, and that's absolutely true. But with so many other things, this doesn't happen instantly. It's not flipping a switch. There is going to be a period of time where inventory is now and will continue to accumulate. And while some sellers who have the option of selling, who don't have to sell, may take their home off the market and wait for a better selling scenario for them, the ones who must sell are at some point going to have to realize they have to lower their price to get their home sold. So this part of the equation always lags behind. Inventory remains tight and prices continue to rise nationally, with nearly 40% of homes still commanding the full list price. So yes, all that is absolutely true today. But as we move forward into this and homes that need to get sold do not get sold, something has to give. And the only thing that can really give in that scenario is the price. So I think you can talk about where we are, but I think you can also look at where things are going and realize that the next thing that needs to get hit is going to be prices. And we're already seeing that happening, right? We're already seeing the amount increase from the previous year in average sales price has already gone down. Instead of being 10%, 12%, 15%, it's now down to 9%, 7%, 8%. These are the types of numbers that I'm talking about that will slow down and could eventually actually go negative so that we actually see a price decrease from the previous year. At the very least, I think we're talking about stabilization of prices for the foreseeable future. And I think as we move further into the year and into next year, we could actually see net decreases in average sales price. And if for no other reason than because the only action that will be happening will be in the lower priced market, right? Or the predominant action will be in those lower priced markets. Prices are still rising in nearly all markets across the country. Homeowners are in a very comfortable position financially in terms of their housing wealth. Sales of existing homes were down in July by 20.2% to 4.8 million properties from 6 million a year earlier, according to the National Association of Realtors. However, the median price last month was $403,800, up 10.8% from July 21st. A more balanced market, I think that's what I've been alluding to here. It's what we've been talking about now on the show for months, that the market is moving towards a more balanced feel, despite the fact that we're even seeing increases in continuing to see increases in average sales price when compared to the same time last year. Sellers need to be realistic. This is always, whenever this stuff starts, I love how the headline or the subhead tends to be something like, sellers need to be realistic. which sort of contradicts what they said below about the strength of the market, how homes are, the price, it's not reflected in prices and homes are still selling relatively quickly. But then they say be realistic. You need to temper your expectations. Quote, sellers need to be realistic about the changing market. They cannot expect to simply list their home at a high price and easily find a buyer. Too many buyers chasing after too few properties. Those days are over. At the same time, homes are still selling quickly, and they give you the numbers we've already talked about. But I think being in the mindset of understanding where you are in the market is important. And if you're someone who needs to sell and you were maybe thinking about selling next year, I don't think you would be unwise to accelerate that plan and sell now. Jump in there as fast as you can. We're actually heading out of the period of time where it was going to make the most sense for you. Once we get to October, I would not, it's a tough one. It's a tough nut to determine whether it makes sense to wait till winter is over and then jump into the market, or if we assume there's going to be a continuing decline, is enough of the seasonal decline going to be overcome by then the market in the following year? So my suggestion to sellers would be try to sell right now if you can. If not, go for January or February of next year and make sure you've got an agent that's out there really doing a lot of different marketing for your property. I think that's really going to be the only way to make that happen for you. In terms of buyers, I'd say rev up your searches right now. I think this winter could be an amazing opportunity for buyers. We'll have to see how things go. This advice may change as more data comes out and we tease out more trends here. But in terms of affordability, and we're at this negative affordability, in terms of potential for you to be able to get into a home at a more affordable level, the homes that stay on the market in the wintertime are going to be the ones that, if you can negotiate a better price, those are going to be the ones that will likely accept it, right? So many sellers that don't have to sell will take their homes off the market in November because they don't want to do Thanksgiving and Christmas season trying to sell their home, having people come and look at their home. If someone leaves their home on the market in that November, December timeframe, they're serious about getting that home sold. So take that as a clue that if they've stayed on the market now for several months and haven't sold, you may be able to go in there with more aggressive offers. So, and keep an eye on the market, see how things are going. Depending on how much more the market leans towards buyers, you may be one of the first folks who starts to be able to get a home at the decline side, meaning instead of it simply being a smaller increase from the same time last year, it's actually a decrease from the same time last year. So keep that in mind. And it's so much of this is going to depend on what happens with interest rates and what happens with inventory and all the recessions and inflation and all these other types of things. We'll have to see. If we do end up going into a recession, things are going to even decline more, which may end up meaning not only that this winter could be the first window of opportunity for buyers, but that window might extend into 2023 more deeply than we would normally expect. All right, folks. I hope that has been super valuable for you. The goal, as always, is to leave more information on the table than you invest in your time. Absolutely hope we've accomplished that this week. If you have any questions, observations, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to hear them. If you've got any show subjects or topics you'd like me to cover, reach out to me at soldbyrobert.com. Click the contact button, and I'd be happy to either talk with you or take your suggestions and work with them. Thanks again for listening, everybody. I'll talk to y'all next time.